Hi everyone, my name's Abby and today we're going to be doing an activity called Letters from the Past. So to start out, we're going to do a little lesson on how paper was made in the 1700s and how letters were sent. And then we're going to do a hands-on activity where you guys are actually going to have a chance to make paper that's going to look like it's from the 1700s. And then afterwards, you guys can actually use that paper to write letters and send them to your friends and family. Here are a couple examples of what letters that were actually written by soldiers in the Revolutionary War looked like, and this last picture is actually an example of what your final product should end up looking like. This activity should take at least 45 minutes, so make sure that you give yourself enough time to be able to go through the process without rushing. And feel free to pause in between each step so that you really give yourself enough time to complete each step properly without having to stress out about following along with the timing of the video. Okay, so now it's time to start our activity. So to begin, we're going to gather all of our materials that we need. So you want to make sure that you have your oven and you're going to preheat that to 200 degrees. You're going to need a piece of printer paper and maybe a couple extras in case you make a mistake. A quarter cup of hot black coffee, 1 teaspoon of instant coffee, a baking sheet that is larger than your piece of paper, a black pen, a sponge or a soft bristled brush, and a roll of paper towels. So you can pause the video here and look at this list of items. And now that all of your items have been gathered, you can go ahead and preheat your oven to 200 degrees or the lowest setting that your oven has. Make sure that you have a parent or guardian with you so that you are as safe as possible. So for this next part, we're going to crumble up the piece of paper into the smallest little ball that you can, and then flatten it out as much as you possibly can. So it should look really wrinkly. And then as you can see from this picture, you can, if you want to get a little bit crazy, you can rip off some of the corners to kind of give it a really rough look. So for this next part, you're going to lay the flattened out piece of paper on your baking pan, and then take your hot coffee and pour that all into the baking pan so that it's covering the entire sheet of paper evenly. Once you're done with that, it should look like this picture. Make sure that you use your sponge or brush to wipe off any excess or any bubbles that may be pooling on the paper so that it's all evenly placed on your piece of paper. Now that you've used your sponge to clean off any pools that may have been left on the paper from the coffee, you're going to sprinkle your instant coffee all over the sheet of paper and wait for it to dissolve, so it should start spreading out a little bit, as you can see in this picture. Now we're going to use our paper towel to gently wipe off any of the excess coffee and instant coffee from the paper. Make sure to be gentle because the paper is wet and will rip easily. Now it's time to put the paper into the oven. It should take about 6 minutes, but make sure that you're checking it pretty constantly to make sure that it's not burning. You'll know that it's almost done when the edges start to darken and the paper starts to curl up on the edges. Again, make sure that your parent or guardian is watching while you're doing this because we really want to make sure that we're safe. You'll know your paper is almost done in the oven if it starts to look like this. Again, make sure that your parent or guardian is checking for you. And when you'll know that the paper is done when these dark spots are no longer showing. So you really want to make sure that the entire piece of paper is dry when you pull it out of the oven. And there you go. Once the paper looks like this, you should be good to go. Your paper will be completely dry by this point. Be careful pulling it off because if there's any residue from the coffee that is having the paper stick to the pan, it could rip. So now your paper should be cooling and it's time to start thinking about who you want to write your letter to. So once your paper is fully cool, you'll be able to use your black pen to write a letter to someone that you would like to catch up with. And I would suggest using a separate piece of paper to maybe draft before you start writing with the pen, because we did just put so much work into your antique paper. But yeah, maybe ask how they're doing, tell them what you've been up to. If you've been in quarantine, maybe just let them know how everything's going and see how they're doing. And maybe mail it to them like they did in the 1700s. So I hope that you guys really enjoyed this video and maybe learned a little bit too. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye.